When my husband, Raymond, passed away 2 years ago, I thought the hardest days of my life were behind me. I was wrong. Grief had a strange way of stretching time, turning minutes into hours and months into one endless ache. I used to wake up in the middle of the night, still reaching for his side of the bed, hoping I'd feel his warmth one more time. Raymond had always been the steady one, a quiet man, gentle but firm. He worked 30 years at the Postal Service, saved every dollar like it was gold, and believed in doing right by family. That's the kind of man who never let the light bill go unpaid, who'd drive across town just to fix his sister's leaky sink. When cancer took him, it wasn't just his body that went, it was the sense of order in my world. Our son Darius was all I had left, my pride and my purpose. He was 25, smart, ambitious, and charming like his father, but with the kind of fire Raymond never had. He used to talk big, like he had the whole world figured out. "Mama," he'd say, "you and Daddy work hard your whole lives, but I'm gonna work smart. I'm gonna make us rich." I used to smile at that. I wanted to believe in him, to see my husband's sacrifices turn into something greater. After the funeral, I tried to keep myself busy. I cooked too much for one person, rearranged the house every few weeks, and found comfort in routine. But loneliness has a way of cracking you open, and when Darius came home one evening talking about his new business idea, a home renovation startup, I listened with every piece of my grieving heart. He came in with papers, plans, even mock-ups he'd printed. He talked about investors, contractors, and big opportunities in Atlanta's booming housing market. He said all he needed was one partner who believed in him. That partner was me. "Mama," he said, his voice soft but hungry, "if you help me with the startup money, I can turn this around for both of us. No more living paycheck to paycheck. I'll make Daddy proud." Something in me melted. The words, "make Daddy proud," that was my undoing. I imagined Raymond's smile, his nod of approval, and before I knew it, I was opening our savings account, the one with every dime of the insurance money and the little pension Raymond left behind. $150,000. Every penny of our life's work. I told myself it was a legacy, not a loss. For a while, Darius made it easy to believe I'd done the right thing. He sent updates, pictures of work trucks, even a few invoices. I saw him dressed in suits, shaking hands with men who looked important. I bragged to my church friends about my son's company, how he was building something that mattered. Then things started to shift. Calls went unanswered. Texts took hours, then days to get replies. When I asked about seeing the business site, Darius would say, "It's still under development, Ma. Don't worry." I didn't want to nag him. He hated that word. But something deep inside me began to twist. The silence didn't feel like focus. It felt like distance. One evening, I tried to call him again. No answer. I left a message, gentle but firm. "Darius, baby, I just want to know how things are going. Mama loves you." Days passed. Nothing. Finally, a week later, I decided to drive to the address listed on the business registration form he'd shown me. It was printed in bold on the top. Carter Home Innovations, LLC. I put it into my GPS, heart pounding with equal parts pride and fear. It led me to a small office complex outside the city, tucked between a tax prep building and a nail salon. When I got there, the parking lot was half empty. I found Suite 204, the supposed home of my son's dream, and not. No answer. I tried the handle. It turned easily. The room was empty, completely empty. No furniture, no computer, no business, just a flickering fluorescent light and the stale smell of dust. At first, I thought maybe they just moved locations. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. But then I saw the mail piled up under the door. Months of it. Bills, final notices, return to sender labels. That's when the truth started to crack through the denial. I drove home in silence, my hands shaking the entire way. I called Darius again. This time it went straight to voicemail. I tried his friend Marcus. "Haven't seen him in weeks," he said casually. Something inside me broke open then. A sound escaped my throat, half cry, half disbelief. When I got home, I logged into my bank account. The balance glared back at me. $12.84. My chest tightened. The screen blurred as my breath came short. I whispered into the dark, "No, no, no, my baby wouldn't do this to me." But deep down, I already knew. That night, sitting on the edge of my bed. I clutched Raymond's photo and sobbed until my throat went raw. The world had gone quiet again, but this time, it wasn't grief from death. It was grief from betrayal. And something inside me whispered, "You can cry tonight, Evelyn, but tomorrow, you fight."
I didn't sleep that night. The sun rose, but it felt like it never should have. I sat on the edge of my bed, still in the same robe I'd worn when I found out. My eyes burned, my body ached, and the weight of it all pressed down like a mountain on my chest. My son, my baby, had stolen from me. Not a stranger, not some scammer from the internet. My own blood. At first, I tried to make excuses for him. Maybe he'd been tricked. Maybe someone used his name. Maybe there was still a chance this wasn't what it looked like. But deep inside, where a mother always knows, I could feel the truth gnawing at me. It wasn't just the money. It was every dream that money carried. The home repairs I'd planned, the quiet life I thought I'd have, the little bit of security that made me feel Raymond's hard work hadn't been for nothing. Now, it was gone. The next morning, I forced myself to call the bank. My voice trembled as I explained the withdrawals. The woman on the phone was polite but detached, like she'd heard this story 1,000 times. "All the transactions were authorized under your name, ma'am," she said. "We can't reverse them." I remember whispering, "But I didn't make them. My son did." There was a pause, then a quiet, almost rehearsed reply. "I'm very sorry, ma'am." When I hung up, I felt small, helpless. But that word, helpless, made me angry. I wasn't raised to stay down. I changed clothes, put on some jeans and a gray sweater, and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were puffy, but there was something else there too, something I hadn't seen since Raymond's funeral. Resolve. I drove to Darius's apartment on the west side of town. It wasn't much, one of those new places young folks called up and coming, but still smelled like mildew and regret. When I knocked on the door, a woman answered. She looked young, maybe 22, wearing a silk bonnet and confusion. Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm looking for Darius," I said. My voice was even, but my heart was pounding. She hesitated. "He's not here. When will he be back?" She shrugged, glancing behind her. "I don't know. He left last week. Said he had some business out of state." My stomach sank. "Did he say where?" She looked me over then, something soft flickering in her eyes. "Ma'am, you his mama?" "Yes." She sighed and opened the door wider. "Come in for a sec." I stepped inside. The apartment was half empty. Clothes on the floor, fast food bags, a broken chair leg in the corner. She pointed to a stack of unopened mail on the counter. "He got behind on rent. I ain't seen him since he said he was going to Atlanta to close a deal. Then he just stopped answering my calls." "Did he say what kind of deal?" She shook her head. "No, but he was nervous, real nervous. Like somebody was after him." I felt my knees weaken. "After him?" "Yeah, he owed people money, I think. He was talking about investors pulling out. I told him to chill, but he said he had to fix it before it was too late." The words echoed in my chest. Too late. It was already too late. When I left the apartment, I sat in my car and gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The betrayal had burned into something deeper now. Fear, not just for the money, for my son. That evening, I called the police to file a report. My voice cracked as I explained Darius's information, the bank statements, and the fake business name. The officer on the line sighed softly when I finished. "Ma'am, I've seen a lot of these cases. When it's family, it's hard. Are you sure you want to press charges?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Was I sure? I thought about Raymond, about how proud he'd been when Darius graduated high school, about the way he'd say, "That boy's gonna make something of himself." And then I thought about my empty account, my empty home, and the silence that had replaced my son's laughter. "Yes," I said finally, my voice shaking but clear. "I want to file the report." There was another pause. "Understood," he said. "We'll open a case." When I hung up, I felt hollow. Reporting my own son to the police felt like stabbing my own heart. But what other choice did I have? Love wasn't supposed to mean blindness. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook, writing down everything I could remember. Dates, bank transfers, names. It felt like I was documenting the slow death of my family. Then, around midnight, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello?" A familiar voice. Shaky, low, desperate. "Mama, please don't do this." My breath caught.
Darius? Please, Mama. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Tears filled my eyes. You stole from me, Darius. You lied to me. You took everything your daddy worked for. I'll fix it. I promise. I just need more time. Time? Baby, I gave you everything. He went silent. I heard him sniffle on the other end. I messed up, Mama. I messed up bad. But if you press charges, I'll lose everything. My heart twisted. You already lost me. The line went dead. I stared at the phone in my trembling hand. Somewhere inside, a mother's love begged me to forgive him, but another voice, one I'd ignored for too long, whispered he needs to face what he's done. The battle between love and justice had just begun.
The morning after Darius's call, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my cold cup of coffee. The words, "I'll lose everything," kept echoing in my head. The truth was, I'd already had. The money, the peace, the trust, it was all gone. And now, all I had left was pain. But pain has a way of teaching you things comfort never could. That day, I went to the police station to finish the report in person. The officer who greeted me was young, probably no older than Darius, with kind eyes that made the moment even harder. His name tag read Officer Jameson. "Mrs. Carter," he said gently, "come with me. Let's go over the details." I followed him to a small gray room, the kind that felt both sterile and heavy, like every broken story that passed through it stayed in the walls. He slid a form across the table. "I know this is difficult," he said, "but the more information you can give us, the better chance we have of tracking him." I nodded, my hands trembling slightly as I clutched my purse. "I understand." I spent the next hour recounting everything, how Darius had come to me with the business idea, how I transferred the money, how he disappeared. I showed them the fake paperwork, the empty office address, even screenshots of our text messages. Every word out of my mouth felt like confessing to a crime of my own, trusting too much. When we finished, Officer Jameson sighed. "We'll open a fraud investigation, Mrs. Carter, but since it's a family matter, this might get complicated. Do you have any idea where he might be?" I hesitated. "Atlanta. That's the last place someone said he was headed." He nodded, jotting it down. "We'll do what we can. And if he contacts you again, don't engage. Let us know immediately." I managed a weak smile. "Thank you, officer." As I left the station, the weight of what I'd just done hit me. I had officially turned my son into a suspect. Outside, the wind cut cold across my face. I pulled my cardigan tighter and whispered to the air, "Raymond, I'm trying to do right. Lord knows I'm trying." Back home, the silence was unbearable. I turned on the TV just to hear something that wasn't my own thoughts. But every commercial about family, every movie about mothers and sons, it all felt like a knife twisting deeper. That evening, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I hesitated. My heart said answer. My mind screamed don't. I picked it up anyway. "Mama, it's me again," Darius whispered. My chest tightened. "Where are you?" "I can't tell you that right now." "Boy, don't play with me. The police are looking for you." He groaned. "I know. I saw it. Somebody told me they came by asking questions." "Then turn yourself in, Darius. Don't make this worse." "Mama, you don't understand," he said, voice cracking. "I didn't mean to scam you. I really did try to start something, but it all went bad. I got mixed up with some people. They wanted fast money, and I thought I could double it. Then things got out of control." I felt my stomach twist. "So you gambled my husband's life savings?" I thought I could fix it, Mama. Please, I swear I didn't mean to hurt you." The ache in his voice made my anger tremble, but pain isn't the same as repentance. "Darius," I said slowly, "you didn't just hurt me. You destroyed everything we built. Your daddy's memory, our home, my faith in you." "Mama, I'll fix it. I just need a little more time." "Time won't heal what money can't replace," I said softly. He was quiet. I heard the sound of cars in the background. "Maybe a bus station." He whispered, "I'm sorry, Mama. I'll fix it. Somehow." Then the line went dead again. I sat there in my kitchen, phone in my hand, tears slipping down my cheeks. I wanted to believe him. God knows I wanted to, but I'd lived long enough to know that sometimes sorry comes too late. That night, I went through the old photo album.
The one with Darius's baby pictures. There he was, 5 years old, holding his daddy's hand at the park. There he was, wearing his cap crooked at graduation. I traced my fingers over the smiling faces and whispered, "What happened to you, baby?" The next morning, I got a call from Officer Jameson. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "we traced some of the wire transfers. Your son sent money to an unregistered account tied to a gambling ring in Atlanta. This is serious. We might be able to recover something if we move fast." My knees went weak. I said, "Do what you have to do. Just bring my son home." As I hung up, I realized something had changed inside me. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a mother fighting for the truth, even if it meant exposing my own blood. Later that afternoon, as I sat by the window, a car slowed in front of my house. A man in a dark hoodie stepped out, glanced at my porch, then drove off without saying a word. A chill ran down my spine. Maybe Darius wasn't lying about the people he'd gotten involved with. And suddenly, the danger wasn't just emotional, it was real. For the next few days, I kept my curtains closed. Every sound outside made my heart jump. The crunch of tires, the echo of footsteps, even the creak of the mailbox. It wasn't just fear of what my son had done anymore. It was fear of who he'd done it with. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman to live in paranoia, but there I was, sleeping with the lamp on, praying over every shadow that passed my window. On the third night, someone knocked on my door. It wasn't loud, just a slow, deliberate knock, knock, knock. I froze. My phone was already in my hand, thumb hovering over the 9. I whispered, "Lord, cover me," and took a slow step toward the door. "Who is it?" I called. No answer. Another knock. I swallowed hard, my heart racing. "This is Evelyn Carter. You better speak before I call the police." After a few seconds, a low voice came through the door. "Mrs. Carter? My name's Detective Harris, Atlanta PD. I just want to talk." Relief hit me like a wave, and then confusion right after. "Detective Harris? I already filed the report here in Savannah." "Yes, ma'am. We're assisting with the case. Can I come in?" I unlocked the chain but kept the deadbolt. "Show me your badge through the window first." He did. I studied it carefully before letting him in. He was in plain clothes, brown skin, mid-40s, tired eyes that looked like they'd seen too many broken families. He stepped inside and nodded politely. "You did the right thing, filing that report. I wanted to update you personally." I gestured to the couch. "Please, sit. What's going on?" He opened a folder and spread out a few papers. "Your son's name came up in a broader investigation. The money he took from you, at least part of it, was funneled through a group involved in illegal betting and crypto scams. We think he may have gotten over his head." My throat dried. "You're saying my son is mixed up with criminals?" He sighed. "Yes, ma'am. And that's why I'm here. We have reason to believe some of those people may try to contact you, either to find him or the rest of the money." My stomach twisted. "The rest? They already took everything I had." "I know," he said gently, "but they don't. They might think you have more. Insurance payouts, savings. You need to be careful." I nodded, clutching my sweater tight around me. "What do I do?" "Keep your doors locked. Don't answer numbers you don't know. And if your son reaches out again, tell us." Immediately, his tone softened. "Mrs. Carter, I've seen cases like this. Sometimes these boys, they think they're smarter than the streets. But the streets always collect." I nodded, tears pressing at the corners of my eyes. "He wasn't raised like this." "He believed you," he said quietly. "But the best thing you can do now is protect yourself." After he left, I sat in the living room staring at the folder he'd given me. Inside were photos, grainy security shots of men I didn't recognize, and one of Darius sitting in a car outside a rundown building. He looked thinner, older, like life had caught up with him too soon. I pressed my fingers to his face in the photo. "What have you done, baby?" The next morning, I went to my church for the first time since all this started. I didn't tell anyone the full story, just to ask for prayer. The women in my circle laid their hands on me, humming softly as the pastor's wife whispered, "God restores what the devil tries to destroy." I wanted to believe that. I needed to. When I got home, I felt calmer. I started cleaning, washing dishes, trying to take control of something, anything in my world again. The sun had just started setting when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Darius. "Mama, please don't talk to the police. They'll make it worse. I promise I'll come home soon. Just don't tell them where I am. I stared at the message until my vision blurred. Then another text came through. And whatever you do, don't answer the door for anyone tonight. My heart froze. I looked toward the front window. A black car had just pulled up across the street. 2 men sat inside, both wearing dark hoodies. They didn't get out. They just watched. The streetlight flickered above them, casting their car in and out of shadow. I backed away slowly, locking the door and closing the blinds. My breath came shallow. My hand shook so hard I nearly dropped my phone. For a long moment, I just stood there in the dark, the only sound my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then a soft vibration. Another text from Darius. Mama, I'm sorry. They're looking for the money. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was survival.
I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every creak of the floor, every shift of the house felt like a warning. The car across the street stayed there for hours, the engine off, windows tinted black. They didn't move. They didn't knock. They just waited. I sat in my living room with the lights off, clutching my phone in one hand and my late husband's Bible in the other. Lord, I whispered, if there's ever been a night I needed you, it's this one. Around midnight, the sound of a car door closing made me jolt upright. I crawled to the window just enough to peek through the blinds. One of the men had stepped out. He looked around slowly, like a wolf sniffing the air. Then he started walking toward my porch. I froze. I wanted to scream, to run, to do something, but my body wouldn't move. He reached my steps and paused, looking right at my door. I could see the faint reflection of my porch light in his dark glasses. Then came the knock, soft, deliberate, just like before. Mrs. Carter, we just want to talk. Tears filled my eyes. My throat felt like sandpaper. Go away, I shouted, voice cracking. I called the police. I hadn't, but I was about to. I pressed 9-1 and hovered my thumb over the final digit. The man leaned closer to the door. We don't want trouble, ma'am. We just need to know where your son is. My heart slammed against my ribs. He's not here! He didn't respond. For a few seconds, there was only silence. Then the sound of footsteps retreating down the porch steps. I waited, shaking, until I heard the car start and drive away. Only then did I let myself breathe. I sank to the floor and sobbed into my hands, quiet, broken sounds that seemed to echo in the emptiness of my home. When I could finally move again, I called Detective Harris. He answered on the first ring. Mrs. Carter, they came to my house. 2 men said they were looking for Darius. Did they come inside? No, but they knew my name. He swore under his breath. I'm sending a unit right now. Don't open the door for anyone. You hear me? I nodded, clutching the phone. I'm scared, I know, but we'll keep you safe. When the police arrived, their flashing lights painted my walls in red and blue. Neighbors peeked out from their windows, whispering. 2 officers walked through my yard, shining flashlights, while another stood by the door asking questions I could barely answer. After they left, the house felt even quieter, like every sound had been drained out with the adrenaline. I sat on the couch, trembling, my eyes glued to my phone, half hoping Darius would text again, half praying he wouldn't. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed once more. A message, but not from Darius. Mrs. Carter, we know your son took $150,000. You have until Sunday to fix this before someone gets hurt. No name, no number I recognized, just words that turned my blood cold. I dropped the phone and covered my mouth, fighting back a sob. Sunday? That was 3 days away. What could I possibly do in 3 days? When morning finally came, I sat at the kitchen table staring at a photograph of Darius from his high school graduation, the one where he had his arm around me, both of us smiling like we had the world ahead of us. I traced his face with my finger and whispered, "Did I go wrong, baby?" The smell of coffee filled the air, but I couldn't bring myself to drink it. Every plan I'd made for my retirement, every dream my husband and I built was gone. The only thing left was this aching question that wouldn't leave me alone. How do you save your child from something you can't even understand? That afternoon, Detective Harris called again. We traced the number from last night's text. It came from a burner phone used near an old warehouse by the river. We're checking it out. But Mrs. Carter, don't go anywhere alone, all right?
I promised I wouldn't, but deep down, I already knew. If there was even a chance I could find Darius first, I wasn't waiting for anyone. That night, I packed my husband's old flashlight, a small bag, and the photo of Darius. I told myself it was just in case I needed to show it to someone, but the truth was, it was my courage. As I pulled my car out of the driveway, the moonlight caught on my rearview mirror, reflecting my tired eyes. Lord, I whispered, if I find him, help me bring him back alive. Then I drove into the dark, toward the river, and toward the truth I wasn't sure I was ready to face. The road to the river ran through the old industrial park, a place my husband used to call the bones of the city. Empty factories lined both sides like forgotten tombstones, their windows broken, their signs faded. The deeper I drove, the quieter it got. My headlights caught bits of trash swirling in the cold wind, and my stomach tightened with every passing mile. I parked near the edge of a long abandoned warehouse. The metal walls were streaked with rust, and graffiti sprawled across them like angry scars. I turned off the engine and sat there for a while, the sound of my heartbeat loud in the silence. I shouldn't have come alone, but I couldn't just sit home waiting for another threat. I clutched the photo of Darius in one hand and the flashlight in the other. Please, Lord, I just want to find my baby before they do. The door creaked as I pushed it open. The smell hit first, oil, mildewing, something else. Something like burnt plastic. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, catching glimpses of old machinery, a rusted desk, and the remains of what looked like a makeshift camp. Folding chairs, cigarette butts, empty bottles. Someone had been here recently. A noise broke through the silence, a soft clang, like metal on concrete. I froze. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, echoing from deeper inside the warehouse. My pulse quickened. Hello? I called out, voice trembling. Darius, is that you? No answer. I took a few steps forward, my shoes crunching over broken glass, and the beam of light trembled in my hand as I turned a corner and gasped. A shadow moved. Then a man stepped into view. Not Darius. He was tall, rough-looking, with a scar down one cheek and a cigarette dangling from his mouth. His eyes caught the light. Cold, calculating. You shouldn't be here, lady, he said, voice low. I'm looking for my son. He might have come here. He studied me, exhaling smoke slowly. You Evelyn Carter? My breath caught. How do you know my name? He smirked. You're all over town, lady. Word is, your boy took some serious money from people who don't forgive easy. My knees nearly buckled. Please, I said, voice cracking. I just want to find him. I'll talk to them, pay something back. Anything. The man's expression shifted. Pay back? You got that kind of money? I hesitated, realizing too late that my fear had given him an idea. He stepped closer, and I could smell the tobacco and sweat on his jacket. How much you got, Mrs. Carter? Nothing, I stammered. They took everything. He chuckled low and mean. Then maybe we can find another way you can help. My hand tightened around the flashlight. You touch me, and I swear. Before he could move closer, another voice echoed from the shadows. Back off, Roy. Both our heads turned, and there he was. Darius. He stepped out from behind a stack of crates, his face pale, eyes red-rimmed, wearing the same worn hoodie he'd left home in. He looked thinner, older somehow. Mom, you shouldn't have come, he said softly. Tears sprang to my eyes. Darius, baby, what have you done? Roy smirked again. Your mama got more guts than you, kid. She's the only one out here actually trying to fix this mess. Darius glared at him. I said, back off. Fine. Your problem, not mine. But tell her she better leave before nightfall. People coming here tonight ain't the type to talk things out. He walked away, his laughter
echoing as his boots scraped against the concrete floor. When he disappeared into the dark, I turned back to my son. I didn't know whether to hug him or slap him. "Where have you been?" I cried. "You had me scared half to death. Men came to the house, Darius. They threatened me." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "You didn't mean?" I stepped closer, the flashlight beam shaking. "You took $150,000, Darius. That was your father's life's work. My whole future." He ran his hands through his hair. "I thought I could fix it. I thought if I just made one good deal, I could pay it back before you even notice." I shook my head in disbelief. "You think I wouldn't notice losing everything?" Tears streamed down his face. "I was desperate, Mom. After Dad died, I couldn't watch you struggle anymore. I wanted to make something of myself, to take care of you. But the people I borrowed from, they don't play fair. They took the money and doubled the debt. I'm in deep, Mom. Real deep." My chest tightened. "How deep?" He looked away. "They said if I don't pay them back by Sunday, they'll come for you instead." The air went out of my lungs. "For me?" He nodded slowly. "They know I don't care what happens to me, but they know you're my weakness." For a long moment, we stood there in silence. The sound of dripping water echoed through the warehouse. I could see the fear in his eyes, the same fear I'd seen in my own that night on the porch. Finally, I whispered, "Then we're not waiting till Sunday." He looked at me confused. "What are you gonna do?" I said, "Something your daddy taught me. You don't wait for trouble to find you. You go to the truth yourself." Darius shook his head. "Mom, please, these people," but I cut him off. "You said they're coming here tonight, right? Then we'll be ready when they do." The warehouse grew colder as night crept in. The air smelled of rust and rain, and somewhere nearby, water dripped in a steady rhythm, like a clock ticking down the hours we had left. Darius and I sat behind an old workbench, a single flickering bulb casting long shadows on the walls. He wouldn't look at me. He kept pacing, running his hands over his head, mumbling under his breath. "Mom, you shouldn't be here," he whispered for the 10th time. "If they find you, they already did find me." I cut in sharply. "They came to my house, Darius, knocked on my door, called me by name, and told me I had 3 days before someone got hurt. You think sitting here hiding will change that?" He stopped pacing, guilt flickering in his eyes. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I looked at him, really looked at him. The boy I'd raised was still there somewhere, buried beneath the worry and the mistakes, but his face had changed. There were dark circles under his eyes. His shoulders slumped like he'd been carrying the whole world on his back. "When did you stop believing you could talk to me?" I asked softly. He looked down. "After Dad died, everything felt heavy. You were trying so hard to hold it together. I didn't want to be another burden." "You were never a burden," I said, my throat tightening. "You're my son. I'd give my last breath for you, but you should have come to me, not to these people." He sank to his knees beside me, eyes glassy. "I thought I was doing it for us. The guy who offered the business loan, he said all I needed was a little collateral. He made it sound easy, like it was a chance to honor Dad's memory, to make him proud." "And what did he take instead?" I asked, voice trembling, his lips pressed together. "Everything. The loan wasn't real. The money went through crypto wallets I couldn't trace, and now they say I owe double. They call themselves the Circle." "The Circle," I repeated slowly. "That's who those men worked for?" He nodded. "They control everything, from the underground clubs to the real estate scams. And once you owe them, you're trapped." A chill slid down my spine. "Then we need to go to the police." He shook his head fiercely. "No, Mom. They've got people everywhere, inside the system too. If I talk, they'll come for you faster." Before I could answer, a low rumble echoed from outside, the sound of tires on gravel. Darius's head snapped up. He grabbed my hand. "They're here." My pulse quickened.
Already? He nodded, panic creeping into his voice. They weren't supposed to come till midnight. We moved fast. I ducked behind a pillar while Darius hid near the far corner. Headlights flared through the cracks in the metal walls, and seconds later, footsteps echoed near the entrance. Voices followed. Men's voices, deep and mocking. Well, look what we have here. The prodigal son returned. The door screeched open. 3 men walked in. I recognized one from the car outside my house, a tall one with a scar under his eye and a heavy black coat. He looked around slowly, his boots scraping against the concrete. "You alone, Darius?" he called. Darius stepped out, trying to sound brave. "I told you I'd get your money." He laughed. "Oh, you'll get it? That's funny, because my boss says your mom's the one who has it now." My breath caught. They did think I had the money. Darius's voice hardened. "Leave her out of this." "Can't do that," he said, pulling out a gun and twirling it lazily. "She's part of the deal now. You took from us. She pays for it." Rage flooded me, hot, sharp, unstoppable. I stepped out from the shadows. "You touch my son and you'll regret it." All 3 men turned. For a moment, their surprise gave me power. I kept my chin high, though my knees were shaking. "Well, well," the men said with a smirk. "Mama Carter herself. Brave lady. Smart lady." I corrected. "Smart enough to know you're bluffing." He raised an eyebrow. "Oh, yeah? You wouldn't risk killing us here," I said, my voice steadying. "Not with the police already tracing your calls. They know your names, your cars, even the fake companies you run through the docks." The man hesitated, eyes narrowing. "How do you know that?" I forced a small smile. "Because I talked to them before I came." For a heartbeat, silence hung in the air. Then chaos erupted. The men cursed, barking orders. Darius grabbed my hand and we ran. Bullets cracked through the air, hitting metal and glass. I felt the wind of one pass by my shoulder. We dove behind a rusted car. Darius leaned against it, chest heaving. "Mom, are you okay?" I nodded, breathless. "I told you, baby. I'm stronger than I look." He laughed through the panic, but it was cut short by the sound of footsteps. Closer this time. We were trapped. The only way out was the river. I turned to Darius, my heart hammering. "You can swim, right?" He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "Mom, you're not saying..." "Yes, I am," I said, gripping his shoulders. "You want to live? You want a second chance? Then we jump." And before fear could change my mind, I took his hand, and together we ran for the riverbank and leapt into the dark, icy water. The river swallowed us whole. The water was colder than I ever imagined, a biting cold that stole my breath before I could scream. For a second, I thought I was dying. My coat ballooned with water, dragging me down, and all I could hear was the muffled roar of the current pulling at my body like it wanted to keep me. Then I felt Darius grab my arm. "Mom, kick, please." I did. My legs felt like lead, but I kicked anyway, fighting the current with everything I had left. The moonlight flickered above, a silver blur through the chaos. Finally, we broke the surface, gasping for air, coughing and sputtering. "Stay close," he yelled, his voice hoarse. I could barely see him through the splashes and foam. The warehouse lights were fading behind us, distant shouts echoing across the water. They were still looking. We drifted downstream, letting the current carry us under a low bridge. When we finally reached a muddy bank, Darius pulled me toward it. I crawled onto the shore, soaked, freezing and shaking so hard my teeth chattered. I collapsed on the cold ground, gasping for breath. Darius sat beside me, chest heaving. "You okay?" "I'm alive," I whispered. "That's more than I expected an hour ago." We sat there for a long while, both of us staring at the black water swirling by. Every muscle in my body ached, but I wasn't done fighting, not yet. "Mom," Darius said quietly, "you shouldn't have come for me." I looked at him, my heart splitting. "You think I'd just sit at home and wait to find your body somewhere? You're my child. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you, even this." He looked away, guilt shadowing his face. "I don't deserve that." "No,
I said, voice steady despite the cold. But love doesn't wait for permission. For a while, we said nothing. The sound of distant sirens floated through the air. Somewhere across the water, engines roared. Maybe the men searching, maybe the police. Finally, Darius spoke again, his voice low. Mom, there's something I haven't told you. I turned to him, heart thudding. What is it? When I borrowed the money, I didn't just sign my name. He hesitated, shame darkening his eyes. They made me sign the house, too. I froze. What? The deed. They said it was just paperwork, that it would secure the investment. I didn't think they'd actually... I stood up so fast, I nearly lost my balance. You put the house in their name? Mom, I didn't know. Everything your father worked for, the home we built, the life we built, and you gave it away to criminals? He buried his face in his hands. I was trying to help. I thought if I could get the business running, I could buy it all back. I thought I could make you proud. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Baby, pride doesn't come from what you buy. It comes from what you keep. Your word, your heart, your family. You've been running so long, you forgot who you are. He looked up at me then, and in his eyes, I saw not just guilt, but fear. He said, if I didn't pay by Sunday, they'd take everything. The house, the car, the account, you. I took a deep breath. Then we've got to stop running. We're not going to the police. We're not hiding. We're taking back our life. He frowned. How? I pointed across the river where faint light shimmered from the city. You said these men run their deals through the docks, right? Your father used to work with people down there, good people. If there's a way to prove they're laundering through fake businesses, someone will know. He hesitated. You think they'll help? I think your father's name still means something in this town, and I think I'm done letting fear decide what happens next. He nodded slowly. A spark of resolve lit in his eyes. Then we find proof. We started walking, our wet clothes clinging to our skin, shoes squashing with every step. The night wind whipped against us, but there was a strange strength in me, one I hadn't felt since before my husband died. Maybe because for the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting back. As we climbed the hill toward the city lights, Darius said quietly, you know, Dad used to tell me you could turn pain into power. I smiled through the ache. He said that to me too. Right before we bought that house, he told me, Evelyn, every scar is just a story that healed. We both fell silent, walking side by side. The sky above us was turning gray, dawn creeping in like hope. But then Darius stopped. He looked behind us, his face suddenly pale. What is it? I whispered. He pointed toward the riverbank. There, half hidden by the fog, headlights glowed. Slowly, a black SUV rolled to a stop near the spot where we'd crawled out. 3 doors opened. They found us. He breathed. My heart jumped. The air turned sharp again, the chill of fear crawling down my spine. I grabbed his hand. Then we keep moving. No more hiding, no more fear. This ends tonight. He looked at me, eyes wide. Mom, what are you going to do? I took a deep breath, straightened my soaked coat, and stared at the approaching lights. I'm going to remind them who they're dealing with. A mother who's got nothing left to lose.
The first rays of dawn barely touched the skyline as Darius and I hurried through the back streets near the docks. My clothes were heavy with river water, and every step sent a shiver up my spine. But I kept going, because stopping wasn't an option anymore. Fear had been running my life for too long, and I was done with it. We turned down an alley that smelled like diesel and salt. Metal fences rattled in the wind. I knew this place. My late husband had worked construction near here, building a small office complex by the waterfront years ago. The men he worked with were rough around the edges, but loyal. One of them, Frank Dawson, had come to our house once for dinner after the funeral. He told me, if you ever need help, Miss Evelyn, you come down to Pier 17. I don't forget good people. I prayed he still worked there. When we reached the edge of the pier, I spotted the old boat repair shop with Dawson Marine painted in fading blue letters. I grabbed Darius's arm. There, that's where we start. He looked hesitant. Mom,
What if— Trust me, I said firmly. Your father trusted Frank. So will we. We stepped inside the warehouse-like shop. The air smelled of oil and salt water, and the sound of gulls echoed from outside. Inside, sparks flew from a welder's torch as a tall, broad man worked on an old boat engine. When he turned, his weathered face broke into surprise. "Evelyn Carter?" he said, pulling off his gloves. "Well, I'll be damned. You look like you've seen a ghost." "It feels like it, too," I said with a weak smile. "Frank, I need your help. It's about Darius." His eyes shifted to my son, who hung back awkwardly. "I remember you," he said slowly. "Last time I saw you, you were knee-high and carrying your daddy's toolbox." "Yeah," Darius said quietly. "Lots changed since then." Frank's gaze hardened, sensing something in our tone. "What kind of trouble you in, boy?" "The kind that costs $150,000, I said before Darius could speak. "He got scammed. Now some dangerous men think we owe them twice that. They've already come to my house, and they're coming here next." Frank's brow furrowed. "You call the cops?" "Can't," Darius said, shaking his head. "They're part of it. Some of them, at least." Frank grunted, pulling a rag from his pocket. "Figures. This city's been rotten for years, but you came to the right place. I don't deal with those snakes, but I hear things." He motioned for us to follow him to a cluttered desk in the corner. He pulled out a tattered ledger and flipped through pages filled with scribbles and invoices. "You said they go by the Circle, right?" I nodded. "Well," he said, tapping a page, "I've seen that name pop up in shell companies near the docks. Fake businesses that buy and sell the same boats 3 times over to launder cash. One name keeps showing up. A guy named Leon Price. Used to run shipments out of Pier 18. Rumor is he's the one calling the shots now." I leaned in. "If we find him, we can prove he's behind it? Maybe, but finding him's the hard part. Leon's smart. He hides behind middlemen." He hesitated, then looked at Darius. "But if you really want to hit back, you'll need proof. Real paper. They move contracts and payment orders through the harbor office 2 blocks east. If you can get your hands on one with Leon's name, it'll break their whole front." Darius frowned. "That place is locked down, Frank. Security everywhere." Frank gave him a small grin. "Not if you know the tunnels." I stared at him. "Tunnels?" He chuckled. "Old service routes under the pier. Your husband helped pour the concrete years back. Still connects to the harbor's lower level. I can get you in, but you gotta move fast. And Evelyn, if they catch you, there's no talking your way out." I nodded slowly. "I understand." He scribbled a map on a scrap of paper and handed it to me. "You go in quiet, grab whatever files you can find under the name Pier Solutions LLC. That's their shell. Get out before sunrise." Darius tucked the paper into his jacket. "We'll be careful." Frank looked at him long and hard. "You better be. Your daddy was a good man. Don't let him down again." As we turned to leave, Frank grabbed my hand. "Evelyn," he said softly, "you sure you want to walk into this? You could lose more than money." I squeezed his hand back. I already lost everything that mattered, except my son. I'm not letting them take him too. Outside, dawn had turned the sky gold, but my heart still felt heavy. We followed the map to a narrow hatch hidden behind a stack of old cargo crates. Darius pried it open, revealing a steep metal staircase leading down into darkness. He looked at me. "You don't have to come." I gave him a hard look. "I've been your mother longer than you've been in trouble. Lead the way." He smiled faintly. The first real smile I'd seen from him in months. Then we descended, the hatch clanging shut above us. The tunnel smelled of rust and damp earth. The only light came from Darius's phone, its weak glow bouncing off concrete walls. The sound of water echoed somewhere in the distance, and every step felt heavier than the last. When we reached a rusted gate, he turned to me. "You ready?" I took a deep breath. "For my family? Always." He shoved the gate open. It groaned, the sound bouncing through the darkness. Then came another sound. Footsteps, not ours. We froze. A flashlight beam cut through the tunnel ahead. Voices followed. "There's movement down here. Check it out." Darius grabbed my arm. "They found us again." I turned to him, heart pounding. "Then we make them wish they hadn't." End of part 9. Cliffhanger. Evelyn and Darius seek help from Frank, her late husband's old coworker, and learn of the Circle's money laundering network. With a risky plan to get proof from the harbor office, they crawl through old tunnels, but are discovered.
before reaching their goal.
The tunnel walls seemed to close in as the beam of a flashlight cut through the darkness. My heart pounded so loud I was sure they could hear it echoing off the wet concrete. Darius gripped my wrist tightly, pulling me behind a support pillar slick with grime. I could see the shadow of a man, tall, broad-shouldered, sweeping the light back and forth, searching. "Over here," another voice called. I think I heard something. My breath hitched. We had seconds to decide. Run or hide. Darius pointed toward a small gap where part of the tunnel wall had crumbled, just wide enough for us to squeeze through. Without thinking, I crawled into the space, scraping my arm on the jagged edge. Darius followed, pulling a loose panel of plywood in front of us. We waited. The flashlight beam passed inches from our hiding spot, flooding it with a strip of blinding white. I could smell the leather of the men's jackets, hear the click of their boots. One of them cursed under his breath. "Damn rats. They better not be wasting our time down here." Another man laughed. "Boss said check every tunnel. You know how he gets." The footsteps faded, slowly, until there was only the sound of dripping water. I didn't move until my breathing stopped shaking. Darius whispered, "We have to keep going." We crawled out and followed the tunnel another 50 feet until it sloped upward. The air grew warmer, tinged with something metallic. At the end of the passage was a steel grate, and beyond it, light. Real light. Darius pushed it open and we emerged in a narrow maintenance corridor beneath the harbor office. The hum of fluorescent bulbs echoed above. He checked the map Frank had drawn. Office records should be in the west wing, second floor. If we're lucky, the night crew's gone. If we're not, I asked. Then we improvise. We climbed a metal staircase and reached a hallway lined with glass doors and cubicles. Everything was spotless, cold, impersonal. I felt like an intruder in a world I didn't belong to, one built by people who thought they'd never be caught. Darius moved quickly, checking nameplates. Pierce Solutions, Pierce Solutions, he muttered. Finally, he stopped at a frosted glass door, labeled Pierce Solutions LLC, authorized personnel only. "This is it," he whispered. He knelt by the lock, pulled a small tool from his pocket, and began to work it with quiet precision. I stared, startled. "Where'd you learn to do that?" He gave me a sheepish look. "Dad taught me. Said every builder should know how to fix a lock or open one." The door clicked open. We slipped inside. Stacks of boxes and filing cabinets filled the small office. Darius booted up the desktop computer on the main desk while I sifted through paper files. My fingers trembled as I read invoices and payment orders. Everything looked legitimate. Shipping contracts, client payments. But the numbers didn't add up. Too much money for too few goods. "Mom," Darius said, his eyes fixed on the monitor. "I think I found something." I rushed to his side. The screen showed a list of recent transactions. One stood out, $150,000 wire transfer from Evelyn Carter to Pierce Solutions LLC. My stomach turned. The note read, "Capital Investment, Startup Fund." Next to it, a digital signature, Leon Price. "That's it," I whispered. He clicked into another folder, hundreds of files labeled under fake names, all tied to the same account. Darius said, "He's been running this for years, scamming widows, small business owners, everyone. Can we copy it?" He nodded. "Already on it." The printer hummed, spitting out pages of documents. My pulse quickened, but then I heard it, the echo of boots again. Closer this time. Darius froze. "They found the tunnel." I snatched the last printed page and stuffed it into my coat. "We need another way out." He yanked open the window and looked outside. "There's a fire escape." We bolted to the window, but before he could unlatch it, the office door burst open. 3 men flooded in, one of them Leon Price himself. "Well, look who decided to go digging," Leon said, stepping forward. He was tall, with a sharp grin and eyes too calm for his age. Mrs. Carter, you've been a very curious woman. I felt my throat tighten. You stole from me. From my husband's savings, from my life, he smirked. Your son made a deal. You just didn't read the fine print. Darius stepped forward. You scammed me. You lied about the business, about everything. Leon laughed softly. And yet here you are, breaking into my office. You two make quite the team. The men behind him closed in. One of them reached for Darius's arm, but I stepped between them. You're not touching him. Leon raised a brow. Still playing the mother, huh? Tell you what, give me the files, and maybe I'll let you both walk out. I met his gaze, my hand trembling inside my coat pocket, gripping the folded documents. You'll have to take them from me. Leon's smile vanished. You're bluffing. Try me. The silence stretched. Then Darius pressed a small button on his phone. The sound of a camera shutter clicked. Smile, Leon. I just backed everything up to the cloud. Leon's jaw tightened. You think this saves you? No, I said. It saves every woman you've ever stolen from. His composure cracked. Just a flicker, but enough. I yanked the window open and shoved Darius through. He caught the railing of the fire escape and reached back for me. Mom, come on. Leon lunged, grabbing my sleeve, but the fabric tore. I scrambled out and slammed the window shut just as his fist hit the glass. We climbed down into the night, the documents pressed tight against my chest. My heart pounded with adrenaline, fear, and something else, defiance. When we reached the street, I looked at Darius. We did it. He looked back toward the glowing office window. No, Mom, you did. I shook my head. We both did, but it's not over yet. Because now we had the truth, and the truth is more dangerous than any weapon. By the time we reached the street, the sun had barely begun to rise. The air carried that mix of sea salt and morning fog that always reminded me of my late husband, Samuel, of the quiet mornings we'd shared before the world went wrong. But there was no peace now, only the thundering echo of what had just happened. I clutched the manila envelope against my chest as we ran across the empty lot beside the docks. Darius's breathing was ragged, but I could see the spark of something alive in his eyes again. Determination, the kind that had once made me believe he'd changed the world. We ducked behind a storage container and stopped, both of us trying to catch our breath. Mom, he said between gasps. What now? Leon's gonna come after us. I looked at him, my pulse still hammering. No, baby. Now we go after him. He blinked, stunned. What? I've spent too much of my life being scared. Scared of losing your father, scared of losing our home, scared of losing you. But this ends now. We're not running anymore. We're exposing him. He stared at me like he didn't quite recognize me. Then slowly, he nodded. We found a small diner a few blocks from the harbor, the kind that opens before dawn for dock workers and fishermen. I ordered 2 coffees with shaking hands, my clothes still damp from the tunnels. The waitress didn't ask questions, just gave us a knowing look like she'd seen worse things in these streets. At the booth, Darius opened his laptop and connected to a weak Wi-Fi signal. I've got everything we printed and copied saved to the cloud, he said, but we'll need help to make it public. I thought for a moment, Frank might know someone honest. He nodded and started typing. I watched the screen's glow paint his face, the same face I'd once cradled when he was a baby, full of promise. My heart ached at the thought of what he'd become, what he'd done. But sitting there, I realized something. This moment, right here, was redemption. Frank arrived 20 minutes later, his flannel shirt half-tucked and his eyes bloodshot. Lord have mercy, Evelyn, he muttered as he slid into the booth. You look like you've been through hell. Close enough, I said, sliding him the envelope. That's everything. Names, accounts, signatures, even mine. He flipped through the pages, whistling low. Whistling? You weren't lying. This is a gold mine of corruption. Can you get it to someone who'll use it right? I asked. Frank scratched his beard. Maybe. I know a woman at the Herald, investigative reporter. She's been chasing this circle for months. If we hand her this, Leon's done. Darius looked nervous. And what happens to us? Frank sighed. They'll come after you, sure, but once this hits the press, they won't risk too much noise. These people survive in shadows. You drag them into the light, they scatter. I looked at my son. We can handle it. He hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, we can. Frank made the call. Within an hour, a woman in a tan trench coat walked into the diner, carrying a small recorder in a notebook. Her hair was streaked with gray, her eyes sharp as glass. You're Evelyn Carter? she asked, sliding into the booth beside me. Yes, I said, holding her gaze, and I'd been robbed. Not just of money, but of my family. She clicked her pen. Tell me everything. I started from the beginning. Samuel's death, the insurance payout, Marcus's promises, the business plan, the transfer. My voice shook at times, but I didn't stop. I told her how Leon Kreis had lured my son, how the lie grew until it swallowed our lives whole. When she finished, there were tears in her eyes. You know this story could destroy him, right? Maybe others too. I'm counting on it, I said quietly. She gathered the documents and stood. You'll need protection. Lay low for a few days. I'll contact you when it's ready to go live. After she left, silence settled between me and Darius. The diner's jukebox hummed softly in the background. Some old soul song about heartbreak and redemption. I wrapped my hands around the coffee mug and let the warmth seep into my bones. Darius finally spoke. Mom, I don't deserve your forgiveness. I looked at him, tears blurring my vision. You don't have to earn it, baby. You just have to change. He swallowed hard. I will. I swear it. For a long moment we sat there, a mother and son, both broken in different ways, but slowly piecing themselves back together. Then through the diner window, I saw a dark SUV roll past, slow, deliberate. My breath caught. Frank followed my gaze. They found you. Darius's jaw clenched. We can't just sit here. I nodded, standing. No, we can't. But we also can't hide forever. Frank pulled a small key from his pocket and pressed it into my hand. Safe house out by the old lighthouse. Nobody will find you there. I'll call when the story runs. I squeezed his hand. Thank you, Frank. As we stepped out into the morning fog, I could feel it, the weight of fear still pressing on my chest, but something else beneath it, a fire. They'd taken everything from me once, but not again, not this time. We walked towards the pier, the waves crashing softly against the rocks, and though I didn't know what waited ahead, I knew one thing for certain. I was no longer just surviving. I was fighting.
The drive to the lighthouse felt like moving through another world, a quiet one where time forgot to exist. Mist rolled over the coastal highway, swallowing the road ahead in silver waves. Every few miles, Darius would glance in the rearview mirror, checking if we were being followed. Each time I'd reach over, resting my hand on his arm, and whisper, "Keep driving, baby. We're almost free." When we finally reached the cliffside, the lighthouse stood tall and lonely against the dawn, its white tower cracked with age, but still unbroken. Still standing, just like me. Frank had been right. The place was remote. No cell signal, no neighbors. Just the sound of the wind and the crash of the ocean below. We carried a few bags of food and blankets inside. The air smelled of salt and old wood. It reminded me of the house Samuel once dreamed of retiring to, by the water, where peace lived in the waves. But peace was a luxury we hadn't earned yet. I sat by the window, watching the horizon shift colors as the sun rose. My mind wandered back through everything. Samuel's death, the insurance check, Marcus's lie, Leon's smirk, the fear, the loss, and the long nights I spent praying for strength. Braco broke the silence. Mom, when all this is over, what happens to us? I looked at him. His face older, harder, but finally honest. We start over, I said. Maybe not with money, but with truth. And that's worth more than any dollar they stole. He smiled faintly. You really believe that? I nodded. Because truth heals what lies destroy. For 2 days, we stayed inside the lighthouse, waiting. Frank called through a landline on the third day, his voice low and urgent. It's out, Evelyn. Front page of the Herald. Headline says, Widow exposes harbor scam. $1.5 million fraud ring linked to Pear Solutions LLC. You did it, Evelyn. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. Leon, he's arrested this morning, along with 3 others. They've got enough evidence to bury them. Tears welled in my eyes. Thank you, Frank. For everything. He hesitated. No, ma'am. Thank you. You reminded me some folks still fight for what's right. I hung up slowly. The relief hit me like a wave. My knees weakened, and I sank into the old wooden chair, sobbing quietly. It wasn't just about justice. It was about survival, about taking back the life that had been stolen piece by piece. Darius knelt beside me. It's over? I brushed his cheek with trembling fingers. Almost. He hugged me tight, and for the first time in months I felt the warmth of my son again.
Not the boy who lied, but the man who'd faced his demons beside me. Later that evening, we lit a small fire outside the lighthouse. The sun dipped low, and the sea glowed gold under its light. Darius tossed a folded paper into the flames, one of the fake contracts Leon had made him sign. "Good riddance," he murmured. I smiled softly. "Let it burn, baby. Let it all burn." As the paper curled into ash, I thought of Samuel, of how proud he would have been to see us here, scarred but standing. The next morning, we drove back to the city. Reporters crowded our street, microphones and cameras flashing. I could see neighbors watching from their porches, whispering my name, Evelyn Carter, the widow who fought back. But I didn't hide from them. I stood on my front porch, head high, hand steady. When the first reporter asked, "Mrs. Carter, what do you want people to know after what you've been through?" I didn't hesitate. I said that no amount of money can replace peace, that betrayal doesn't define you, recovery does, and that love, even when it breaks, can still rebuild. The crowd fell quiet. For a moment, even the chaos felt still. After they left, Darius and I sat on the porch steps. The air was warm, filled with the sound of cicadas and a breeze that carried the scent of jasmine. Darius said quietly, "Mom, I'm gonna get a real job. No schemes, no shortcuts. Just work, honest work." I smiled. "That's all I ever wanted for you." He turned to me, his eyes glistening. "You still believe in me?" I reached for his hand. "I never stopped. I was just waiting for you to believe in yourself." The sun dipped low, painting our neighborhood in soft amber, the kind of light that made even broken things look whole again. As the evening deepened, I whispered to the wind, maybe to Samuel, maybe to God, "We made it. We're home." The light in the lighthouse, far off in the distance, flickered once before fading into the horizon, and I realized then, some lights aren't meant to guide ships. Some are meant to remind broken souls that no storm lasts forever.